the bigger picture. Okay. So are we ready, guys? Okay. Please remain standing for the invocation.
Father, thank you for every seed that has been filled today, for each mind and heart that feels the presence of this room. We thank you. Only you truly know what we are setting out to accomplish. We have an idea, a vision, hints and daily instructions. We have talents, abilities, and time to work. However, only you can see in perfect detail the end of every beginning, every project, every season, every life. Nothing is ever in vain, for even mistakes and missteps are used for good. Our prayer is that your will be done through this event. Take what we have prepared and multiply our efforts as only you can. Steer our intentions to align with your righteous will. Remind us of your faithful provision when our efforts fail us or fall short. May all glory go up to you when we reach the finish line and climb over benchmarks. Blanket us with your peace, Father. Bless this event today, all those present, as well as the lives of those we will encounter afterward. Ready us to make every moment count. This we pray. Amen.
Hello, you may now be seated. And good morning once again. The Philippine Textile Research Institute has pulled together experts in the manufacturing and innovation sectors to provide us insights, possibilities, opportunities in the Philippine textile and garment sector towards the Industry 4.0. And to officially open the forum and to give her welcome remarks, ladies and gentlemen, the Director of the Philippine Textile Research Institute, Director Celia B. Alumba.
Good morning, everyone. Well, thank you very much, guys, for coming over. I'd like to really, I always say whenever we start a conversation that this is really a meeting among friends. And especially on a Saturday morning, Lilo was very right. This is a very pleasant day. So we thank you so much for joining us on this really beautiful occasion. I wanted to say a particular thanks to the prayer. It was very personalized. Pati yung national anthem, personalized din. Kasi may injected na and a sound in the background. Aside of course of the images. So I it was very personalized. So we treat everything in a very personal manner, and we always want to see that, we're working with people who we feel are in the same page. We are all advocates of one and the same, and at the end of the day, we're looking at one country, one Philippines. So I am very encouraged to see your presence here today with us. This particular topic is really about Industrial Revolution 4.0, but we wanted to phrase it as Textile 4.0. When we speak about our textile industry, there is quite a challenge ahead of us. When we speak of who are really members of our industry around us for the Philippine setting, it really presents quite a challenge. So allow me just to speak about a little of what that Industrial Revolution is all about. You all have heard of the first one back in the 17th, 18th century when they first had the first hand loom that was made, and this was not even electronically fired, not powered by energy, it was powered by steam. And from then we went to the 20th century with the Industrial Revolution, looking at processes, looking at mass production, looking at how it has been institutionalized. And using, of course, electrical energy. To today's, in the 1970s, we went with automation by electronics and IT. The still is evolving today with smart factory settings based on cyber-physical systems. Now an integration is very interesting because the integration is going vertical as well as horizontal, and we will be speaking a lot about that today. So from those first looms to the first automated loom to the steam loom to the jacquard machines, where is Philippine textiles, or where are we in Philippine textiles? So as I started to say, we have much to talk about and we have much by which to speak of. So we are very fortunate to be joined in today's forum by industry experts, by subject matter experts, with a very esteemed group of presenters. I would like to acknowledge Engineer Robert Tison for talking to us about automation and the integration with industry. I am very grateful also. We have with us here today Dr. Atienza, who is going to speak to us about fashion and AI. That's quite something because, we have been steeped in traditional textiles at the Philippine Textile Research Institute. We have a saying, we work with what we have, and we aspire for what it is that we do not yet have. So AI in fashion is going to be a very interesting conversation. We also are going to have with us someone from the Foreign Buyers Association of the Philippines, and he's going to talk to us about market-responsive product development strategies. He is, of course, speaking from an exporter's perspective, but at the same time, we will have an academic perspective from the program chair from the DOSU College of St. Benilde's School of Design and Arts, and she will be speaking about the perspective of fashion design coming from the academic perspective. And we will also have with us the person who is working with us on our three-dimensional body scanning system. If you have not been to the exhibit area of the exhibit proper, we brought with us our 3D body scanning machine, and the objective is multifold. We will speak about that as we go along. And I will, of course, speak to you about prospects of Philippine textiles in Industry 4.0. So I thank all of you for being with us here today. If I may please acknowledge the presence of friends from the regions. May I have them please rise? Our friends from the regions, we have reached them. Thank you very much. We also have some members from the academic community. May you please have them. Thank you very much. Dr. Examen is with our Iloilo Science and Technology University, a partner collaborator with our Regional Yarn Production and Innovation Center. Thank you for flying in. We have also members of, I saw the contingent from the Fashion Revolution. Do we have Fashion Revolution guys here? From the social enterprises, do we have representatives here, or from industry? There you go. Of course, another very important market collaborator with our Regional Yarn Production Innovation Center, Jeannie Habelosa and Imelda Canuel from the Great Women Philippines. Thank you very much for joining us. And so, we talked about this merging of cyber, physical, and biological worlds. And as we go from materials to processes to systems of production and procurement that cuts across customers and partners with solutions and systems as the product, not the product as the product, but rather the system and the solution as the product. You know, this is where the value chain originally, we had like 7 steps from raw material, and then you were brought to production, and from production you went into production to distribution to wholesale to retail to consumer. Now it is cut across from raw materials to disruptive technology to consumer. So we have a lot of integration that is now being cut across and cut through. So I welcome all of you to today's activity. We have a lot to talk about, and we have a number of considerations or a number of communications that I think we will be happening right after this. In fact, we already have a number of inquiries, and we're really quite excited to move on and to proceed, and we know that there is a lot more that we can hook our minds and our hearts to as we go into the next years of Philippine Textiles. Maraming salamat po, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Director Edumba. So I hope that sets the mood to make us excited to listen to our speakers so that we can learn something and bring that something to our workplaces. So let's move on to the rest of the forum. The manufacturing sector has seen tremendous growth when machineries and equipment are upgraded. So clearly, machine and equipment development is critical in the progress of an industry. Befittingly, our first speaker will talk about smart manufacturing, automation, and interconnectedness in industrial production. Our first speaker finished both his Bachelor and Master of Science degrees in Electrical Engineering at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. He was awarded the Magnum Balawenyo sa larangan ng Agham at Teknolohiya in April 2012. Currently, he is the Executive Director of the DOST Metals Industry Research and Development Center, who spearheaded the development of and rollout of 100% Filipino hybrid train, now servicing commuters from Alabang to Binyan. Guests, it is my privilege to introduce to you one of the formidable force behind the metals and manufacturing industry, an engineer and inventor, the Executive Director of DOST MIRDZ, Executive Director Robert O. Dizon.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for making the introduction very short. Okay, so while waiting for the okay, there it is. Are you familiar with MIRDZ? Okay. I thought only PTRI, but MIRDZ is the sister or a brother agency of the PTRI under the Department of Science and Technology. In fact, we are next door neighbors at the south compound of the DOST in Bikutan. And like PTRI, who is involved in R&D and some services in the textile sector, we do R&D and we offer technical services in the metals and engineering sector. Anyway, I'm here to talk about Industry 4.0 at MIRDZ. Before I start, may I ask, is everyone familiar with Industry 4.0? Can I see a show of hands? So, there are a few. So, I'm sure most of us have heard in the introduction, there's introduction of Industry 4.0. I'm sure most of us have heard about it, but do we really understand what it is really about? Sorry. Well, I for myself, I thought I knew Industry 4.0. I we thought, hey, we should have this at our facility. We should have the latest equipment. But somehow, it doesn't go that way. It changed when I attended this study mission on productivity enhancement through applications of Industry 4.0 in Japan last year, March 6 to March 9, 2018. So I was fortunate enough to be selected as a participant in this study mission. And the study mission objectives were to provide participants with opportunities to learn from Japan's efforts to promote Society 5. So I'll talk about Society 5 later. And connected industries to determine how they may be applicable in their countries. Second is to learn from Japan's practical applications of Industry 4.0 and trends in enterprise application. And third, to identify advanced IT applications and IT-enabled devices for intelligent robots utilized by Japanese companies to enhance production efficiency. Anyway, I hope you don't mind if I am sharing with you the learnings from that study mission, because that's one of my my obligation from attending that seminar. I was supposed to share with as much people as possible the learnings. My personal objectives in attending that seminar was to better understand and appreciate Industry 4.0. Two, to use the learnings in crafting the program of MIRDC in I4.0, particularly in revising the project proposal of MIRDC for DOST-PTRI funding for the setting up of the Advanced Mechatronics, Robotics, and Industrial Automation Laboratory, or the AMERIAL. We have been proposing the establishment of this laboratory since 2016, but until 2018, there was not much word from DOST or any sign of approval from DOST for that project, and I later found out why. Then the last is to learn what Society 5 is. That was something new. I've heard of Industry 4.0, but Society 5 was something new. Anyway, this is if you Google Industry 4.0, I'm sure this will be the most hit in Google, this image, showing you the first, the second, the third, and fourth industrial revolution. Mind you, the first industrial revolution involves mechanization. So where do you think the Philippines is right now? Industry 1, 2, 3, 4. Second, but we're talking about agricultural farm mechanization. Diba? Nasa Industry 1 pa lang tayo. Hindi naman. Anyway, and this is another image you can take from Google, showing the years they were introduced. So in Japan, it all started in 2012. By the way, Industry 4.0 was coined by the Germans way back in 2010. So Japan was catching up with the Germans, and it all started when Shinzo Abe, Prime Minister Abe, became the Prime Minister way back in 2012, and they were studying why Japan has some problems, some are having some economic problems, and these are the factors they have listed down. Now, when it comes to R&D, take note that they found out that China spends more on R&D than Japan. That was in 2012. Japan's R&D expenditure is performed mostly by the private sector. There was a decline of R&D spending also by the private sector. By 2010, Korea took over Japan with private R&D to GDP at 2.8%. 2.8% versus Japan's 2.5%. Japan's government spending on R&D is small, 0.74%, where compared to the US at 1.18% and Korea at 1.02%. So their goal is 1% of GDP. What do you think the R&D expenditure of the Philippines is compared to our GDP? I think it's 0.2. 0.1 or 0.2? 0.14 sabi ni, according to Director Ilumba. 0.14. We also have this ambition of getting to 1% of GDP. So the strategy of Prime Minister Abe was to, not the strategy, the strategic goal was to reach 600 trillion yen GDP, and the strategy was to boost productivity. And to boost productivity, they are looking at Industry 4.0, drive innovation. The key really is to drive innovation and boost productivity through new technologies. So what is Society 5? In his administration, they are not just aiming for productivity per se. When you talk about productivity, we somehow relate it to production, industry, manufacturing. But for Japan, they want to go beyond manufacturing, production, but taking advantage of productivity and applying it to their social lives, to the society. So Society 5, according to them, similar to Industry 4.0, there was Industry 1, Industry 2. So Society 1 was the hunter-gatherer society. Society 2 was the agricultural, the farming society. The Society 3 was the mass production society. Then Society 4 is the connected society. Society 5 is having all of this and a society that is expected to facilitate human prosperity. So they were just putting Industry 4.0 in the context of social impact. Such a society is capable of providing necessary goods and services to the people who need them at the required time and at the right amount. A society which is able to respond precisely to a wide variety of social needs, and where all kinds of people can readily obtain high-quality services, overcome differences of age, gender, region, and languages, and live vigorous and comfortable lives. This was very important in the Japan setting because we all know that Japan is an aging society. So they need a lot of they need interventions to address their aging society. So as I've said, one of their strategies, Industry 4.0, and Industry 4.0 is mostly interconnection, connected industries. And with connected industries, they envision better productivity, encourage innovation. There. And they launched this program, the Robot Revolution Initiative, in 2015. And they focused on IET and robotics. And this is key. The main objective of the RRI, the Robot Revolution Initiative, was to support the SMEs, because SMEs, similar to the Philippines, they constitute a big portion of the manufacturing sector, the 80% maybe. So they need to support the SME if they want more productivity. Now, how do you take advantage of Industry 4.0? During the seminar, during the study mission, we were at the misconception that Japan or Singapore or Korea were already there utilizing the I4.0 technologies. But we were surprised that because during that study mission there were a number of Asian countries, I think 11 of us. So there was China, Taipei, Taiwan, Korea, Japan, Singapore, and we were expecting that they are there, more advanced. But somehow they are at the same, more or less at the same level as anybody else, as everybody else in the group. So Industry 4.0, according to the speakers in the seminar, doesn't have to involve the high tech, the most expensive technologies. Because of course, when we attend seminars, when we attend the expos, we are shown the high tech, the sophisticated I4.0 technologies. Only the big companies, the big private companies could afford those technologies. It doesn't have to be them only. Even the SMEs can start small, and this is an example of how an SME can utilize I4.0 technology. The cell phone. The simple cell phone, $100, marami pang much cheaper these days. The cell phone has sensors. It has accelerometer, it has image, the camera has sensors, and it has connectivity. It has Wi-Fi, it has Bluetooth, it has data. So, in that seminar, we were shown different use cases of not that complex technologies or solutions to some productivity problems. Here they apply the cell phone. That's a picture of a mold, a plastic injection mold. Then to monitor because these molds wear and tear with use. So to monitor wear and tear, they put the cell phone beside the mold. So to monitor the vibration, mostly the vibration and the number of cycles it has been operating. So with the simple cell phone, they were able to gather data on the wear and tear of the mold. Another application of I4.0 technology, particularly in robotics, because there's a fear that robots will replace humans. This application demonstrates humans and robots working together. So instead of a robot replacing a manual labor, they instituted a robot nurse that monitors of course the human, maybe in his helmet or in his uniform there are some sensors, vital sensors, which the robot nurse is constantly monitoring. And if the robot sees something unusual, then it will approach the human to ask him, "Are you okay?" And if then they can act accordingly. So that's a demonstration of robots not replacing human, but robots working together with humans. This is an example of an image processing application of in a small store. It's a small bake shop, parang say bread talk, where there are a number of different kinds of breads or rolls or cakes which cannot be, when you cannot place a barcode or a price tag because hindi naman sila naka-wrapped. So it would be difficult for the cashier or the storekeeper to keep track of the order, magkano each piece or each cake. So they developed a simple camera app that takes a picture of the cakes, the bread on the tray, and automatically computes the bill. So instant, that's a simple image processing, then connect to a point of sale system. You have an instant calculator of the bill. This is one application that can be used by your sector, the garments, the textile sector. According to them, in Japan, there is seasonal demands for different kinds of clothing. Siyempre may summer, winter, spring, and some factories get clogged by so many orders, but some are lying idly because of few orders. And some retail stores, they have high demands, but they lack suppliers. Some have more stock than they needed. So this can be an opportunity for the garment sector. They just a pioneering enterprise put up some kind of matching platform, an enterprise resource software linking the supply, the factories, and the demand, the customers, the retail outlets, the stores, the garment sellers. So with this palang, there is maximizing or optimizing the resources and the demand on the demand side, also supply and demand side. There is matching. So anyway, with those use cases, the strategy of Japan was to spread the news, to spread the use cases, so that more and more SMEs, more and more companies will adapt. Will adapt not just the high-tech, more expensive solutions, but the relatively simple technologies. And yung penguin effect, yun na, parang sa atin, that's bandwagon effect. And again, even the big companies are not really diving directly into 4.0 because of my company is working doing well right now. Why do I need to upgrade? It's not parang people are still wary of leveling up or upgrading to Industry 4.0. Now, going back to the American, So this was the original objective. After, and these are the specific objectives. Before I went to the seminar, we were supposed to come up. Of course, we will provide a service, but we are supposed to do R&D, and we were targeting 3 automation projects, 2 in-house, 3 automation. Anyway, yun yung specific objectives of the project before. Now, it was for 2 years we have been proposing. The DOST wasn't noticing us, but after the study mission, I somehow revised that project into a program. So the program now is transforming Philippine MSMEs through Industry 4.0 technologies. Because I learned that Industry 4.0 is not just acquiring the technology. It's more on using them, and it's not really the Industry 4.0 technologies per se, but the steps toward there. So you can do Industry 2, Industry 3, and later on, if we are masters of Industry 2 and Industry 3, we can level up to Industry 4. So now, one main objective is to be able to demonstrate practical applications and benefits of automation. So we have this program, and Amerial is now just a project under the program. And we have the facility being set up right now. We have an ongoing construction of the space at MIRDC. And take a look, from the initial 3 projects, we are now targeting 350 projects for 3 years. For the first year, 50. First year is this year, 2019. Because this doesn't have to be big projects. For you small enterprises, the entrepreneurs here, if you have any small process in your operation that need automation, as simple as say a timer, a small controller, temperature controller, that is considered a project. Anything that will upgrade your operation, that will improve your operation, that will improve your productivity, relating to automation, industrial automation, is considered a project. And we are here. We will not be waiting for the establishment of the facility. We have started actually, and we are constantly communicating with the regions to coordinate with the SMEs in the regions. Sorry. Now so that's in relation to Amerial. We have another Industry 4.0 technology program at MIRDC, which is the AMCEN, or the Advanced Manufacturing Center. Siguro kung makapasyal kayo doon sa booth namin, there's more information there on the AMCEN. The AMCEN is divided into 2 programs. So AMCEN is additive manufacturing technology talaga, because it is the latest we will be the first in Asia to offer such a center with this capability. So, yung additive manufacturing, or more commonly known as 3D printing, I'm sure a lot of you have seen have heard about 3D printing, but this 3D printing does not involve only plastics. This will involve metals and other materials, ceramics, polymers, composites. And we are working here in partnership with ITDI, Industrial Technology Development Institute, another agency under the DOST. So ITDI's role is to develop new materials that can be used in 3D printing. MIRDC's role is to use these materials and use the equipment in producing parts, 3D printed parts and applications. So there, metals, polymers, ceramics, castable wax, composites. And the technical services that will be offered will be 3D scanning, 3D printing, scale modeling. Of course, yung PTRI has the scanning, but mostly for body scanning. As you can scan anything from the small to the big. Design optimization, virtual warehousing. Virtual warehousing is if you're a small anyone that has a part requirement that you don't need to stock. Parang you need a one-time, once a year or once in a decade part that you need. You can have one printed at the facility, and then the facility will keep the library of that part. And if you need again, you will need again in the future, you can just order, and we will fabricate or 3D print that part for you. The manufacturing, technical consultancy, training, and policy standards. So this AMSEN is in partnership, of course, with RDIs, Defense, because maraming application ng Defense for 3D printed parts. The Academy, so with the Academy, we've sent out invitation. By the way, AMSEN will be opening maybe middle of next year. But even before that opening, we are conducting a lot of seminars, a lot of fora, in consultation with different sectors for your specific sector requirements on 3D printing. And of course, the industry. So to end, let me just say that Industry 4.0 really is not about the latest, most expensive, high-tech technologies. For us, the small entrepreneurs, we can start with even Industry 1. If you are a farmer, pag nagkakarabaw ka pa rin, mag-upgrade ka na to Industry 1, farm mechanization. And if you are a small enterprise that uses manual labor, if you need to improve the quality of your products, you need to improve productivity to save on resources, on materials, to reduce waste. There are approaches, there are inexpensive solutions to those simple requirements. So with that, I am inviting everyone. By the way, Amerial will be open next year also. We are in the process of acquiring the equipment, but these are the Industry 4.0 equipment. For Industry 2, Industry 3 requirements, we are here. We are available for consultation, and we will provide possible solutions to your requirements in your applications. Yun lang po. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Executive Director DC. think my takeaway from this is that you don't have to be a big industry to take advantage of the Industry 4.0, and that the government is actually doing something. So I'm very happy that we have representatives from the region, because this is something that they can really take advantage of. Executive Director Dizon will not be with us during the panel discussion. So if you have questions for him, I think we can entertain 1 or 2 questions right now. Okay, Executive Director Dizon will be here. At this point, I would like to...
Allow me to also acknowledge my fault, my failure. So I'd like to acknowledge and thank Alan, our chief. Alan is the president of NORDE. He's going to share with us some very interesting discussions later on. But I also wanted to let you know that our secretary will be also giving us a keynote speech. He'll be coming about 11 or so, 11:50, 11:30. So we'll wait out for that. Thank you very much.
So, okay, now we move on to our next speaker from the Connected Society 5.0, from the world of artificial intelligence. I think now we go deeper to that field and determine how it can benefit the industry of fashion. Our next speaker is a robotics and deep learning technique expert. He's a graduate of the University of the Philippines, Diliman, with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. He earned his Master of Engineering degree at the University of Singapore and his PhD in robotics from the Australian National University. He is author to more than 40 technical publications, according to Google Scholar, and currently holds an associate professor position at UP Diliman under the Electrical and Electronics Engineering Institute. He is author to a reference book titled Advanced Deep Learning with Keras. And ladies and gentlemen, a name already immortalized in the field of deep learning and robotics, a teacher and a mentor, Dr. Ruel O. Atienza.
What else is it supposed to be?
Bakit hindi nyo nag-inom? Paano ba?
Di ba may fluorine pa yun? Pero ano ito? Ano, feeling ko na feeling ko to about it. Ay ba yung ano, pizza?
Hi, hello. So I think we're having a little bit again of technical difficulty. So while waiting, I think it's good that it's still fresh in our mind. If you have anything to ask Executive Director Dizon at this point, I think we will welcome maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience. You can approach either of the 2 microphones. You can ask questions, you can also make your commentaries if that's something you would like to share. So anyone from the audience? Please state your name and your affiliation. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jesus Pastor, one of the artists for the National Revolution program. Interested ako on the, you mentioned about the projects na that is becoming big, pero I had as simple as like a timer or something, you can call automation or rush. I'm interested how's the process of sending a proposal and what would be the process from the application to the granting and the specifics to applying for a.
Okay, so right now what we call sub-projects under the Amerial project, we are handling it in conjunction with the DOST regional offices. So, but it's not limited to them actually. You can go directly to us. If you have something in mind, you have a facility or an operation that you think has a potential, you can just write a letter to us, to DOST, MIRDC, to me, addressed to me. And we have, in our group, in our team, we have a team. Actually, we have 3 teams working on this. Of course, yung main source of request namin are from the regions, the DOST regional offices. But we also accept walk-ins from anyone. And all you have to do is just send me a letter, and I will give this letter to the team, and the team will visit your place to assess. And by the way, our intervention kasi is just up to the consultancy. We will provide you, so this is what you're doing, this can be done, this you can do this to improve on this, but on the implementation aspect, you will have to shoulder that on your own. What we are providing for free is the consultation. If you are connected to a DOST regional office or in their setup program, are you familiar with the setup, yung Small Enterprise Technology Upgrading Program? You can apply funding assistance from them in the implementation. But for the consultancy, the design, we will provide you the design, even the bill of materials. But the implementation will be yours.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Executive Director Dizon. So at this point, if you have any questions, we will try to answer them later during the open forum. We will have an open forum later after the talk of Dr. Atienza. So there will be 2 speakers to answer your questions later. So okay. So now I give back the microphone to Dr. Atienza. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm Roel Atienza. I'm going to talk about fashion in AI. Sorry for the delay. Although we are already in Industry 4.0, we're still having problems in video. Right? Okay. So this is a picture. Whenever I travel, I take pictures and I have Instagram account. This is one of the pictures there. I'll show you what's the importance of this later on. So quick, this is my outline, the outline of my talk. First, I'm going to give you a quick background of what AI is, so that as an educator, part of my job is to keep people informed what's AI. Okay. And so there is no misinterpretation in that term. And then we're going to tackle AI in fashion. So, okay, that's a very interesting application of AI. So in particular, I'm going to cover two fields of AI. One is called generative model. I'm not going to dig deep in this, but just a general idea and how it can be useful in fashion. And then I'm going to discuss about style transfer as well. And then lastly, I'm going to discuss about elements of successful AI in fashion. So it's more of a pitch. The last part is more of a pitch. Okay. Now, first thing is I'm not a fashion designer, so just to level the expectation on that part. Okay. My background is actually, as said earlier, is in robotics, computer vision, and AI. Okay. So I studied in National University of Singapore. I'm not actually built. My job was to generate a software or program algorithm that will enable that robot to walk. And then when I went to Australia, I used computer vision to, command a robot wherever I'm looking at in 3D space, it will pick it up. Okay, that was my job. Now, let me explain to you what AI is quickly. No, it's not about building a Terminator. Never will be. Okay, that's maybe 100 years down the road, or maybe even more, maybe not possible. Right now, what is realizable is we want to build machines that can perform human level skills. Okay, so this is one thing that I built. For example, it's a very fast detector of objects in space. It will count. You can imagine you can build a cashier, a cashierless checkout store, a cashierless store wherein you don't need to interact with the cashier anymore. It will simply count automatically what you took from the shelves. Now, generally, you can imagine that if you're talking about skills, AI is dealing with a lot of problems like knowledge representation, reasoning, computer vision, speech recognition and synthesis, natural language processing, and planning. So some of this, they already have real-world products that you can already see or been using. It's just that you didn't know probably that's actually AI. For example, in speech recognition and synthesis, if you have Alexa or Google Now, that's actually speech synthesis and recognition. So it can understand what you're talking about, it can respond back, and so forth. That's actually AI. In my field, in computer vision, we did a lot about detection, recognition, counting, tracking, and later on I'll explain some fields that we're currently working on called generative models and style transfer. In natural language processing, probably have already interacted with an NLP agent. We call it agent. Just for example, if you visited a website wherein there's a chatbot, that's actually NLP. If you use Google Translate, that's actually NLP. Okay? So then there are more sophisticated AI, cutting edge, which is more or less they still don't have real-world applications. Concrete product applications like knowledge representation, reasoning, and planning. Okay, now this is the if you take a look at in the landscape format, this is what I'm going to touch today. I'm going to touch about AI in fashion, in particular two fields of AI. AI is actually, it has a very broad field. Okay, I'm just talking about two here, and the two fields are the generative models and the style transfer. And under generative models, there are many other subfields there like GAN, Bay, Flow, and style transfer as well. There are many subfields there. Now, I'm going to focus my talk on GAN. That's where our work currently is focused on. I'm explaining what GAN is. GAN is actually stands for Generative Adversarial Network. So sometimes whenever I say, I love GAN, no, people thought I love shooting people. No, I'm talking about Generative Adversarial Network, okay? And this is a huge implication, in particular applications on synthesis of fashion designs. And not only it's limited on fashion designs synthesis, it's also applicable in creating synthetic humans that look very real, okay? If you take a look at them, you will not recognize they are not real people, okay? They are synthesized people. Now let's take a look what the basic idea of GAN is. I'm going to explain it in the context of faking money, okay? So GAN has two elements. We call it generator and discriminator. I'm explaining how it works from the context of faking money, okay? So in this case, in this context, the counter thief, I call it simply as thief, is actually called the generator. And the second part here, the police, is actually the discriminator. So in this case, we're training the police, okay? We're training the police initially. The goal is to provide the police, to train the police the skill of being able to discriminate between a real money from fake money. Okay, that's the objective of the police. Now, in order to train the police in that way, it will get the bank will supply the police with real money, so it recognizes real money. At the same time, the thief will supply the police with fake money, and it will say, I know how to distinguish now real from fake money. Okay, that's the first cycle. However, on the second cycle, the thief will try to create fake money and show it to the police, and then tell the police this is real money. Of course, the police will say, no, that's not real money. But the most important thing there is the police will tell why. Sabihin ng police, because the font is wrong, the color is wrong, the face is wrong. You know, all the feedback, okay, will be told to the thief. Then the thief will then say, I know why it's wrong. I know why it looks fake. Then I will improve my skill. Therefore, I will improve based on the police feedback. I will improve my fake money making skills based on that feedback. Now, imagine if this cycle would continue, okay? On the first cycle, money from the bank, real, money from the thief, fake, and then show it to the police. Then on the second cycle, the thief will create fake money, show it to the police will give feedback, the thief will improve its skill. If this happens indefinitely, there will come a time that the thief will be able to master how to create a fake money that looks real. Okay, that's the essence of the GAN. Okay, now I'm talking about GAN, which is actually an AI that learns to hallucinate and be able to create or print fake money that look real. Now the thing here is, why am I using money? Money is just a representation of data here. You can imagine that you can replace money with any data that you have. Okay? So, for example, let's take a look at GAN that we're working at UP-EEI. In this case, we use GAN to hallucinate how a point clouds actually point in space. How will they look like when you take a photograph of point cloud? But points actually you can't see them, okay? You can just imagine them only. There is supposed to be audio here, okay? Okay, now anyway, if we skip the audio here. Now let's take a look at this part, okay? This is the part wherein we are training the AI to hallucinate, okay? You know, whenever you are creating AI model, you need to train it, and training it takes time. Okay, sorry, I'll repeat that again. There is a scenario, there is a part of the slide. There is supposed to be audio explaining what it's doing, okay? But basically, That's point cloud, and then we want to see how is the image that is equivalent to that point cloud as rendered as an image. Okay. Now that part, okay, this is the part wherein the AI is trying to learn, okay? It's trying to hallucinate, and then it's just the part wherein the thief is creating fake money and showing it to the police, and then it's trying to improve its skill. Now this is the part wherein there is a point cloud in space, then it will try to draw an equivalent image to that one, okay? So that's an example of GAN which I created. This is another one wherein it will try to hallucinate. If you have that model on the left and model on the right, what's an intermediate design in between, okay? You can adjust that, okay? Now, let's now take a look at more interesting part, okay? That concept GAN can also be used to create synthetic humans. Let's take a look at the work here from NVIDIA. Although there's no audio here, so let's take a look at this. Never mind. Now, these are not real people, right? But they look real. That's a key, okay? This is the real state of the art. Okay? Now, we can therefore, in theory, we can synthesize millions of people, faces of people that look real, okay? They do not exist okay? But they look real, okay? Now, let's take a look at that one, okay? So, the idea is, if I can create synthetic faces that look real, then I can also create a synthetic fashion model. If I can create a synthetic fashion model, I can also create a synthetic, clothing, apparel, everything synthetic, okay? You don't need to manufacture them, you don't need to manufacture them, you don't need to hire people. You can create ads that, without real human beings, okay? As you can see here, these people are not real, okay? And the clothes that they are wearing are not real. They are just synthesized by an AI. Okay, in the same concept as the GAN, printing fake money, okay? That's essentially the same concept. So, that's about the first part, the generative models. Okay, now let's take a look at the style transfer. This one is more applicable on art and design, okay? What is style transfer? You can imagine this too, okay? You have a source image, and then you have style image. How can I transfer the style of that middle image to the source image? The answer is yes, you can, and you can use what we call style transfer. And again, there are many algorithms used in style transfer. And one of the algorithms is that's popular is called cycle GAN. It's actually based on GAN, the basic GAN. Okay, but there's a little modification there. But I'll explain you the concept. The concept is very simple. Okay, for example, you can imagine the horse. Okay, if I can train an AI to redraw the horse such that it looks like a zebra, and from zebra I can redraw it back to the horse, then I can train an AI that can perform style transfer. That's very, very basic, okay? So that means if I have a real photograph, and if I can transfer it in Monet style, and from Monet style I can transfer it back to the real photograph, then I can train an AI agent to do style transfer. Okay, that's the reason why it's called cycle GAN. It transfers from horse to zebra, and from zebra back to horse. It's a cycle. Okay, if you can train that AI that way, you can create what we call a cycle GAN. In fact, the shirt that I'm wearing right now is a product of this technique. Okay, so that means that's my original picture from the first slide. Then I will use these styles at the bottom. Take a look at the bottom. Those are styles. So if I transfer that style to that source image, I create the intermediate images. Okay, so no human intervention. It's just the AI trying to hallucinate, trying to redraw those images. Okay, if you're working here on this space, you will actually be fascinated. You will be surprised of the images that are being created by AI. This is a higher resolution images. Okay, take a look at this. For example, you can tell the AI agent, if this is my original image, the Kagsawa Maya volcano, can you draw it such that it's Monet style or ukiyo-e style or Cezanne or even Van Gogh? We have Van Gogh as well. You can do all those things, okay? Now, this is another one, okay? For example, you can have a source image. This is the Golden Gate, okay? And then you have a favorite style by Picasso. You can transfer the style of Picasso to the Golden Gate, okay? Now, so we were wondering, can we do it on shirt? We can also do it on socks, okay? But take note, I'm not an expert in textile, so you don't criticize me that this is not manufacturable. This is just an hallucination of style, okay? So, okay, that's it. That's about the second part of my talk. I'm now going to talk about, this is more pitch, okay, the last part, on the data scientist and high performance computer for AI. We need these three elements for successful implementation, execution of AI in fashion. And the general objective, just like every one of us here, is we want to create apparel, manufacture apparel and clothing that people wanted to buy, okay? Not just for the sake of art, okay? Really. Now, what's data? Okay, data is very important. It's fuel for innovation. Okay, so it will be in the form. You give me probably 50,000 designs of fashion designs. I can make something out of it. Okay, what I want is just images, high resolution images of different fashion design of clothes and apparel. You can do it as well on fashion models. You give me 50,000, 100,000, the more the merrier, okay? Fashion images of fashion models. Or we can also create data sets of 3D body models, okay? Just like what you did here on Perfect Fit, or if you can use technologies from Body Labs, Import, or visually, just create this data set. This is the fuel, okay? This is what we need for innovation, okay? The second part is we need scientists as driver for ideas, okay? So that means, just at the top of my head when I was working on this, we can create algorithms that can synthesize new designs and fashion models on high resolution. Right now, the problem is on resolution because of the compute power limitation. And you can also design based on social media influencers. For example, if you saw, Kylie Jenner is wearing this new gold and you can imagine, you can ask the AI to synthesize that for you, okay? So you can also have personalization of fashion design. So basically, you just talk to an AI agent. This is the cloth that I want to wear today. Can you create this? Okay, you give the specs, the color, the style, everything until you converge. It's just like whenever you're talking to an artist to create a sketch of a person. Okay, the similar idea. And one thing, whenever I travel around the Philippines, is I noticed that most of the shirts are, you can create innovative design. You can use AI for that one, okay? So what's lacking right now, for example, is the mixture of text and synthesized image. This is what we want to work on, okay? So for example, if I went to Bohol, then there is a picture of tarsier that will be synthesized by an AI, and at the same time, there will be their tarsier, okay? That's something, and they merge nicely together, okay? And then the last one is, you need high performance computing for AI. If you want to accelerate, okay? And this is not cheap, okay? This is not cheap. For example, if you want something respectable machine, you need at least 8 million pesos to do it. And this type of machine is really hard to get in the Philippines, okay? Because most of the companies here, they just require server, not for AI. Those servers are not suitable for AI. Okay? Just for storage or e-commerce or something like that, not suitable for AI, okay? Now, what we have at Triple E is a small version of this one, okay? It's a one port in terms of compute power. Okay? We have something similar at EEE. At any given point in time, there could only be 2 people using that. That's the problem there, okay? Now, this is a meme, just to remind you of how the elements of successful AI can interact with one another. I always use this idea. You need the car because you need to travel, okay? You need that as a vehicle for transformation. But a car needs fuel, and you need data as fuel for the car. And the car will not move, even though it has fuel, without ideas from scientists, okay? So you need those 3 elements together to create a successful AI fashion. And we have more than 20 plus, okay? Students, full-time researcher, faculty in the team UP-TTRI. So in particular, I want to thank these people. Joel is here, who helped me in preparation of the slides. If you're interested to learn more about GAN, not the GAN that you know, I have a book on advanced deep learning. The basis of this is the course that I'm teaching at UP-TTRI. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atienza, for that very insightful look in the future of fashion. I don't know about you, but I think this is not 10 years down the road. I think this is very near. This is happening very, very soon. I'm really excited. And I know that the creative people here, actually in the audience, rather itching to get those questions asked already. So at this point, I'm actually getting a cue from our ushers if our keynote speaker is already here or not. Because somebody. Okay. At this point, I would like to invite our speakers in front for an open forum. And I would like to solicit questions from our audience. If you're particularly shy, we actually have pieces of papers that you can get from our beautiful usherettes. So just get their attention. They will provide you with that pieces of paper. You can write it down. Or you can also approach the microphones in front of you or at your back. Okay? So while we're setting up, maybe you are already turning those questions on your head. Executive Director Dizon and Dr. Atienza, thank you. I think they are very ready to receive your questions. So I actually have, I already have a question for Executive Director Dizon from earlier. Okay, so the question is, okay, so I think this is something to do with that the textile and garment industry is already it's really not doing well right now in terms of industrial scale production, because there are a lot of ukay in the market, and there are many of those small shops offering second-hand hand-me-down food. So I think the question is, what can we do about it from the perspective of the industry 4.0? If we can actually revive it or revitalize it, do we have to have a control? Do we need to control it to have a system which can actually control or regulate it so that it will not affect our industry?
I'm sorry, but I don't think I can answer that. Maybe Director Luma can answer that for you. About the textile industry.
Actually, that was also one of my question, because we are looking to see how we can do the upcycling, recycling. We invested in it. But the first question always is the sensors. How can you differentiate when you sort, when you collect, then you have to sort? Because the process for conversion eventually is going to be different. But let's say it's a polycotton. The shirt that you're wearing is a polyester and a cotton blended together. You have to be able to now differentiate between the 100% cotton piece of item and one that is a blend, and another one that is really synthetic. Without that, in other words, it goes into a funnel. So from the funnel, it has to be able to now differentiate which is what, so that when you process it, when you break it down, the process of the technology will be particular to that particular material. That's a point, I think, of a study and research. We might be able to do.
Yes, if you can guide us on how it is being done somewhere else, or what sensors are they using for that? Because I think these are highly specific sensors. Kami medyo sa general lang kami familiar. But for yung very specific application, maybe you can point us, or we can search together with you yung mga researchers also from PTRI. We can work together on that. And very maganda yung idea.
Okay, thank you, Executive Director. I think we have a question from the audience.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Engineer Dagarmino, Sir Dr. Engineer Dison. You know, in the Philippines, the garment and textile industry is deteriorating. Ibig sabihin, kasi maraming ukay-ukay na, di ba? And the question here is very much simple now. Like for example, in Igorot or in our province, Catanduanes, there are abaca industry that is in the weaving, which is the abaca fibers are being exported to other countries. Like for example, in Tacurum, no? It is the Tibuli tribe, wherein doon na mismo sa lugar nila. The question here is, or in Igorot or in Mangyan, ginagawa na nila doon sa lugar nila. There is no foreigner here, no? Pwede mag-Tagalog.
Yes.
Okay. One. Okay. I will make it English. Okay. Now, we know that the pulp industry, textile and garment industry is huge. That is around 5 hectares or 3 hectares area. We are here for the purpose. We are here for the industry for that we could manipulate from the large scale to the small scale, or to the model of the barangay textile industry or community textile industry, wherein we could let that industry 4 or society 5 be focused on us. Because we will not just be attending this seminar for nonsense. We have to let this seminar employ to every one of us in the field, you know, also for us what we can do in the inventors, innovators section or group. So it's good that the MIRDs has a huge space. And thanks, sir, for last week in the environmental forum. But the question here is just simple. How could the textile industry put from the large scale to a small scale community or barangay textile industry? That's my question, sir.
To answer that, we at MIRDC, we design machines, we make controllers and equipment to cater to the requirement of whatever application is required. But for the application, we need the end users. So yung end users, it is the end user who will tell us what is required of this machine, what it will do, how it will do it. And based on yung requirements, we will design the machines. But yun nga, hindi namin alam kung ano yung requirements of that machine. So siguro si Director yung may nakakala.
Salamat po. Thank you for the question. Actually, that is a reality. When we speak of Tela Pilipinas, ito, hindi ko po alam kung ilan, how many of you are familiar with the Tela Pilipinas? Show of hands. How many have heard of Tela Pilipinas? Okay, in the room we have about maybe 20% have raised their hands. And a number of them are from the agency. Hello, from the DOST-PTRI. Okay, Tela Pilipinas is Textiles Empowering Lives and You. Ang goal nun is creating localized integration. Ang ibig sabihin nun, yung sinasabi ninyong modelo, pero ito beyond the barangay. So ang aming pong unang exercise is at the Iloilo, Miagao in particular, the town of Miagao and Iloilo, and this is now in partnership with the Iloilo Science and Technology University. Ang ating pong Great Women Philippines project partners are here. We have the ESAT represented behind you. We also have the regional office, the DOST-6. The LGU is also a partner in this one. Yung goal, whatever is available, raw materials in that province or that town or the immediate 50 to 150 kilometer radius, we will be able to now make into yarns that the weavers can use to weave with, that they can make into fabric, that they can dye and color and cut and used by the local community. So meron na po modelo na the systems integration na po yun. So localized integration na ang po technology.
We could invite the PTRI in our province, Catanduanes. You know, we have around 500 tons per month, per week of delivery to China. Okay, of fiber. Okay, now the question is, it is being exported, no? Now, if we could be utilizing that particular tela, gawin natin sa Catanduanes. Para sa ganun we'll invite you, pre-board and lodging.
Okay, okay po yan. Meron po ba tayong representative from Region 5 na nandito? DOST Region 5. This is a region po that we are working together with the regional office. We will identify all things that we need to identify, but we at least need 5 partners here, multi-stakeholder, which is really, I think, one of the aspects na kanina pino-point out ni Director Bobby, diba? Kailangan yung integration, you need multiple stakeholders. So there are 5 people who are at least 5 to 6. So sige po, pag-usapan po natin on the side, marami pong detalye tayo pwede mag-in po tayo.
Kasi ang baka industry is fast moving in our province. And, it is a waving good for tela sa buong bansa natin, and we could utilize it. Hope that this my missus in question is very much fun.
If you may, please visit our booth in the bar.
Katabi lang po ako nun sa PTRI dati.
Okay, thank you.
Salamat po.
Thank you. Okay, I have one question from our relatives, because we are under one DOST system, from DOST-6, PSTC Antique, kay Mr. Abraham Fabula. Can the 3D facility of MIRDC produce small items such as spare parts of machines and gadgets not available already in the market?
Yes, definitely. What type of material ba? As long as the material process or material characteristic is identified, we can find match siguro dun sa mga available materials namin.
Okay, thank you. So, are there any other questions? Okay, please. State your name and your affiliation, please.
I'm Pam Quinto with Fashion Rev. My question is for Sir Rowan. In terms of style transfer for art and design, would it be possible to teach the AI? Because with the examples, you get the certain finish of the style, but would it be possible to teach the AI like particular principles or sensibilities to make a more authentic output? For example, like a Picasso piece based on an image. With the idea with Picasso's work, he has to break down the image into simpler shapes. So with the images that I saw, you get a certain finish, but not yet exactly like Picasso work.
I think okay. talking about is there's a specific, can you hear me? Okay. There's a specific, well, I explained earlier in GAN, okay? There is actually a specific type of GAN called conditional GAN, wherein we can actually specify what we want the agent to create, okay? So that's the reason why one of the ideas that I presented is you can actually create, in theory, a personalized fashion, okay? So that means you just specify it, but in that case, you need to train it as well. For example, what is the meaning of long? What is round? All the, for example, the geometrical properties that you're telling me, including colors and whatever, we call that one as disentangled representation. That's actually the technicality, the technical term there, wherein you separate the properties or attributes, okay? So that you can tell the AI what attribute of clothing or apparel design that you want it to create. Okay, that's actually an interesting area that you can work on. It's more practical because you can interact with it.
Yes, Ms. Yu. But before that, I would like to recognize, of course, the presence of Honorable, our Secretary, the Secretary of the Department of Science and Technology, Secretary for Democracy and Development. Welcome, sir, to our forum. We're just having a little bit of open forum, and there is a question from Ms. Gini Havelosa.
Thank you guys. Because we're in this report.
I'd like to ask about the image direction, Dr. Roel. We're protecting the intellectual properties of the indigenous peoples. That's what we're focused primarily for great women. We work with a lot of handlooms and community weavers. Now, where part of our whole direction is we want to be able to aid all the indigenous people's motives and make sure this is IP to them. At present, only the Tinalak of the Tibolis have been IP'd under EU funding supported by the DTI. So we're creating a bigger program where we would like to touch on all the IPs of our indigenous peoples, because these have been many times taken away by foreigners and brought into factory looms, and the Tinalak sold abroad. So our people don't get anything back. So how can we use this AI system where if we did documentation, you need data, right, of all the IPs, motives unique to them, and these are retranslated in more contemporary, revitalized forms, but that the IPs get royalty from every time this form is used. You see, this is where I want to take it for our country, because at the end, if nobody's taking this stand for them and helping bring them to a more revitalized way, their culture will die. And they will be taken over by everybody else who wants to take advantage of them, and we've seen this. So I want to see how we can do this and use that. We IP it for them, help them manage their unique IP per tribe and group, and sorry, I cannot call it tribe, they're indigenous peoples, and then we move it into next step, and they own that same thing, they move it, and they get a royalty as we do this. And we who are in the area of the enterprise side may be able to now use it for fashion, but we give them intellectual property royalties, right? So all of us are watching that the designers now can pick up a yakan that is more fashionable and funky and all, but that the IPs from where it came from is also protected. This is how we want to see how we can use this AI technology. That we work with the IPs themselves, because we're doing it now. So can that be done?
At the moment, the IP, as far as the data is concerned, in our case, the IP is only protected as far as who took the image. But the original image, the original object that photographs is not protected, okay? So, and it's an interesting question because right now, that area, even in the United States, they don't know the answer, okay? For example, I showed you earlier wherein you can synthesize human faces that look real. You can synthesize clothing apparel that look real, and also the whole fashion model, you can create it. But the question is, who actually is going to own the intellectual property of the synthesized image. Okay? So as far as I know, you can only protect the images. Okay? You as a photographer take images. The images are protected by intellectual property, but the derived data, like AI synthesized images, that's a gray area right now. We don't have a specific, as far as I'm concerned, even in the United States, they don't know what's the concrete answer in that case. In the same way, for example, in autonomous cars, if, for example, an accident happened, who's liable? Is it the software in the car? Is it the manufacturer? Is it the driver? Because in the first place, the driver is not driving, right? So who is going to be liable in that case? That's a gray area right now. That's the reason why insurance companies in the United States, they don't know the answer yet. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Atienza. And we are still soliciting questions from the audience. Are there any more questions for our distinguished speakers? Okay, so I have some.
I just wanted to add, in answer to your question, Jeannie, it's a bigger conversation. It's not just a very one-off, straightforward. But there is just one recent example that happened. This is with a Filipino, she's a graphic designer, and she comes up with fashion pieces. And she saw that the image that she used was adopted by a UK-based brand. And they went to court, and she won. Well, the winning was, let's put it this way, they ended up having a good solution to it. Both of them won, so they'll be collaborating. I guess the point is, she owned it. She already showed how it was really a part of her body of work, and she brought it to court, and so they were able to find a resolution. But that is a bigger conversation because you're now dealing with the indigenous peoples.
I may add as well, I was talking to Director Celia earlier. I think it's true about there is, the process of weaving of indigenous people. Okay, how can you? It's hard to recreate. Okay, so I was telling him that actually that idea can also be modeled. Okay, there must be a way to model it wherein the AI can learn simultaneously. They can try to mimic what the human is doing, to the point that it could already replicate what the human is doing. So that one, in that case, maybe you can intellectual property-wise, you can patent the method or algorithm. In some countries that can be done, like in the United States. I'm not sure about the Philippines.
Thank you, Dr. Atienza. So I have actually a similar question. Can fashion file or style transfer not intellectual property infringement, considering that the image is maintained? So I think this was already answered. This is now like a gray area, as according to Dr. Atienza. So another question is, for garment assembly, is automated sewing machine manufacturing already available in the Philippines? If yes, is this accessible? Does this DOST provide assistance to acquire or fabricate such equipment?
And Director Ilunga will answer.
It is available to some extent, but they are used for very particular parts. For example, you want the pocket making to be very precise. So you already have a template. And so the computer is now, you log in the number of stitches, you put in the stitch density, so that's repeated. So this is applicable if you have a lot of volume. So this is now particular for many countries. They have this, and they have this in, so for example, the mass assembly that we were speaking of that happened at the turn of the century, that mass assembly is no longer the case today. The case today is no longer mass production, but it is in shorter, quick batches. So you can have this kind of equipment. It is, I have to say that they are particularly used by exporters, people who have bigger scale or larger volume. They're not yet quite used in smaller exercises, but there is no reason why we shouldn't. So yes, for that matter, I will say that yeah, with the MI, we can develop those machines and equipment. And you know, we can even put robotics and electronics, whatever we need to put in. So yeah, sure, please come forward. Let us know what it is that you need. That's all we're waiting for.
I think there's already like a collaboration on work right now at this time. So I think at this time, may I invite Director Celia B. Alumba. We will present our distinguished speakers with a certificate of appreciation. And can we also request the Secretary to join us on the stage in presenting the certificate to our guest speakers. And the certificate, the Director, may you read the citation, please?
Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Andrew Robert Odison, Executive Director, Metals Industry Research and Development Center, for sharing his invaluable expertise and knowledge as resource speaker on the topic Smart Manufacturing, Automation and Interconnectedness in Industrial Production during the Forum on Opportunities for the Philippine Textile and Garments Industry 4.0, given this 20th day of July 2019 at the World Trade Center, Metro Manila, Central Hill Gateway Corner, Diosdado Macapagal Boulevard, Pasay City.
The Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Ruel O. Atienza, Associate Professor, University of the Philippines, Diliman, Electrical and Electronics Engineering Institute, for sharing his valuable expertise and knowledge as resource speaker on the topic Artificial Intelligence in Fashion during the Forum Opportunities for the Philippine Textile and Garment Industry 4.0, given this 20th day of July 2019 at the World Trade Center, Metro Manila, Senator Hill J. Puyat Corner, Diosdado Macapagal Boulevard, Pasay City. Signed, Director Celia B. Alumba. It may interest you to know that the lining of the token being given by our director is a natural fiber bleach fabric containing 30% pineapple. The hand-woven abaca accent was woven by the Tiboni tribe and rendered in a modern two-tone tinalang woven pattern. And Director Celia B. Alumba is going to present our keynote and our honorable guest for today.
Good morning, everyone. Alam niyo po, in the last so many days, we have had so many activities, and so we're very grateful to have with us our beloved Secretary of the Department of Science and Technology. Last night, I heard that he really rocked. So, na-realize ko po, hindi ko po bibigay sa inyo yung normal spiel that we give for our Secretary, because I think this is really among friends. I realized, I understood that the Secretary used to be so hindi po commercial model ang tawag doon. Ang tawag po yata doon ay poster boy. Siya po ang poster boy ng kanila pong unit back in the day when he was still taking up his studies at the University of the Philippines. And he was used as very memorable po sa akin kasi po binanggit niya, he was telling us about the anniversary, the 50th anniversary of the landing on the moon. And in that same newspaper of the Apollo, and on that same newspaper, there was the picture of our Miss Gloria Diaz, the binibining Filipinas who became Miss Universe. So very memorable because it was also in the inside pages, in a whole page as the poster boy for the for ESO. He was a scholar, I guess, no? And then he worked for them eventually. And they were really talking about how this particular program has reared from scholar to employee of the ESO. Which is now Petron. So his career is bringing him into many heights. From the professorship, which I understood is a beloved career because he really loves to teach, and he was really in education for the longest. And that was, I remember he was so busy, but despite that, every Saturday he would go to UP to teach. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinct honor and pleasure to present to you our beloved Secretary, Fortunato T. de la Peña of the Department of Science and Technology.
Thank you very much, Celia, and good morning to everyone. I have to request for a adjustment in the sequencing of programs because I try to be able to appear in the different programs that are running in parallel. So in the morning, early morning, we have this forum on grassroots innovation. They launched the framework, and there were international, regional visitors and international visitors also. And then on my way here, I thought this is my next stop from there, and then there was already a group at the other room telling me that we are already ready for the picture. We are only waiting for you. So I came inside. This is the alumni of the Japanese universities. They have also an association, and they are closely tied up with DOST. So I went inside and paused for a while, and then they said, you are our keynote speaker. So I said, no, I am supposed to keynote at the other room. Anyway, tutuloy ko lang yung kwento ni Celia. So, she said, and I like to tell this story, yun nga, tomorrow, July 21, marks the 50th anniversary of man's landing on the moon. Tomorrow, July 21. And so, sinasabi ni Celia, the following day, the Manila Times headline, man's landing on the moon, and Gloria Diaz was crowned Miss Universe. So, and then inside was an advertisement of my company, ESO Standard Eastern, which became Petron in 1974, advertising me as para pag CSR. He was our scholar in college, and now he's working for us. It's a full page inside. I forgot all about it until when my mother died. I went home to clean up the old house, and I saw she kept the newspaper. So I had it framed. But anyway, that gives you additional information. Definitely, Gloria Diaz and I are more than 50 years old. I will not talk much about the technologies that will be presented today. My concern is how PTRI will try to balance its various programs for the different kinds of clientele that they have. So in other words, actually, I'm not talking to the guests from the industry, I'm talking to PTRI because you are catering to different sets of clients. So you have clients where you have the big ones, maybe helping them or the medium ones to go into 4.0 or to make use of the new materials that you have developed. Then you have a clientele here which as Ms. Abiliana was saying, we have already existing small handicrafts for textile for centuries already, and how do we help them? And on the other hand, we are also trying to contribute, to the generation of startup companies that, by the way, is the target of the newly signed Innovation Startup Act. It is welcome news that the President has signed already 3 laws that are affecting the science and technology sector, and maybe we are hoping that another one will be signed before Monday. And it's almost there. I'm referring to the signing of the Startup Innovation Act, which is really defining more clearly what would be our government's role in encouraging startups. And to me, we participated quite actively in the discussion on that piece of legislation. Senator Bam Aquino was the main author, and we worked very closely with him. It's a very good piece of legislation. I remember my first issue there was I said, Senator, make sure that something is said in the law that we in government like DOST is authorized to extend financial assistance to startups because we are trying to avoid the COA problem. Okay, COA has questioned so many of our assistants, and we are having a hard time. Okay, now the other one is there were two in innovation. The Innovation Act, which was authored by Senator William Gatchalian, which actually says something about the structure of government in trying to push innovation. So it's more organizational. Okay. The other one is, of course, the amendment to the Magna Carta for science workers in government. Actually, very simple amendments. One is that they are allowing now the extension of service of scientists beyond 65 if the head of the agency will allow or justify. And it also decentralizes the approval of who among the government workers are entitled to the Magna Carta benefits, okay? Because this is really intended for science workers. And the existing system is that all government agencies submit the list to DOST, and the DOST is the one that scrutinizes each and every recommended beneficiary of the Magna Carta benefits and then approves or disapproves. Now it is decentralized, so the different agencies are on their own to determine who among themselves will be receiving the Magna Carta benefits, but using the same criteria as the DOST. And the third amendment there is lifting the limit on the amount of additional income that a government worker can earn, but from external projects. If it is from within, okay, there's a limitation on how much you can receive extra. But from externally funded projects, they remove the cap of 25%. And the last bill which we are waiting to be signed is the Philippine Space Agency Act, which has already gone through the process, and I think what is missing is ano na to, parang it's an internal procedure within that has delayed the actual signing. Now, so the reason why I mentioned that is that, as I was saying, PTRI hopes to cater to different target clientele. And again, I'm sorry, but I have to relive memories of when we went through the rationalization program in 2002. Actually, that program of DBM took almost a decade to do. In fact, DOST was the first one to submit its rationalization program. They started 2002 and they approved our rationalized program in 2010. Imagine how long it took. And we were the first to submit. But really the difficulty there was, I remember three major difficulties that I encountered. I was the chair of the Change Management Committee. In effect, the committee in charge of recommending what will be the rational structure. And we encountered three major challenges. One, DBM wanted to merge all of our 5 councils into one. Okay? So PSHERD, PICARD, PICASTARD, PICARD, PICOMARD, and PCHRD on health, agriculture, marine, advanced science and technology, and they want only one. So it was really difficult because in the first place, these are distributed. These are in different places. Okay. Secondly, the coverage can be very different, you know. Imagine health and agriculture, you know, and industry. So we managed to come up with a solution instead of 5 to 1, 5 to 3. Okay, so we merged the advanced and the industry and energy. We merged agriculture and aquaculture and marine. The second major challenge is how to justify the continued existence of PTRI. Okay? There were two agencies that they wanted to abolish, PTRI and the Philippine and the Forest Products Research and Development Institute. The main reason is that these are sunset industries in the Philippines. No? So the attitude then is, if it's sunset, we give up. Okay? And I do not agree to that. Okay? My defense was that, okay, if the big textile companies are out, okay, then we will focus on the small size companies which are dealing with textile. And so that was it. But the size of PTRI was reduced into more than half. That was the same case as the Forest Products Research and Development Institute. Anyway, but the challenge is continuing. Okay, there is another pending legislation called right sizing of the bureaucracy. You know, when you hear right sizing, it's almost always reduction, you know, in government. But we are preparing for that, and to me, I think the best assistance that I can get, you know, in our defense, just in case this one will again prosper, is for PTRI to give me success stories in the different categories of clientele that you have assisted or partnered, because it is easier to explain to them, look at what we have done here, look at the impact, and if we can only replicate this with more resources, then we can have a bigger impact and we can benefit more people and more communities or sectors. So actually, PTRI has done assistance and interventions, technology intervention that has resulted in the expansion of some enterprises, okay, in the growth of some enterprises, existing ones. They were, I think, instrumental in encouraging also startups, although not yet too many. And finally is in the value addition process. Okay, but we would really want to present more of these success stories, and this is the reason why we are happy that people from industry are coming, are listening, are participating, because this is the only, I think, clientele that we have. Okay, PTRI is not doing service for the academe. Wala namang textile curriculum except a few, you know. And like, for example, if you deal with the Industrial Technology Development Institute, there are so many programs in the academe that they can partner with. So it's really the industry and the entrepreneurs that we have to deal with. And of course, the other challenge is to create awareness among our various publics on what is available at PTRI, what they can do. Maybe I will end my, I don't know if this is an inspirational message, but at the other room where you have the alumni PhD scholars, I don't think they were inspired because I made them feel guilty. Anyway, a few weeks ago, a good friend of mine, I mean family friend, told me, who do I talk to in DOST or in, she knows PTRI because my niece, the wedding of my niece is forthcoming. Okay, it sounds like a big event, and we cannot find the material with the color that we want. Okay? So we would like our material to be dyed with natural dye to the color that we want. I told her, please go to the Philippine Textile Research Institute and look for our director seller there, and she went. Okay, I don't know whether she brought the material already when she came, but before the end of the day, she told me, I did not know that you had all of these services and that you have this technology, and sabi ko, yun na nga eh, sabi ko ganun, in her case, sabi niya, sige, I will share all of this to my chat group. Alam mo naman yun, social media, okay? So that they will know, and she was, of course, all praises in what she saw, and finally, you know, friends naman, They do not care whether you are secretary or not. Sabi niya, can you be the one to pick up the material? After it is finished, o sige, sabi ko, okay lang. As Celia, kailan ba matatapos? O by the end of this month, tapos na yun. Ready for the fashion people to process the material. But she was so happy, okay? Pinamirienda pa daw siya ni Celia. So, okay. Anyway, public awareness is very important, and that's, I think, what we need, and the help that we need to the private sector who already experienced some collaboration with us, is spread the word so that there will be more work for Celia and for PTRI. The Industry 4.0, I think we have a special program for that, so that can be taken care of. And since we have committed people in the technologies that we need, I'm sure they will not disappoint us. After all, Bob is your next door neighbor in the same compound. Of course, UP is a constant partner in the different activities that we have, and the private sector providing the technologies are more than willing for mutual benefit. So I welcome all of you to this kind of, shall we say, can we continue this kind of dialogue so that we will know along the way whether we are in the right track or not. We are at least proud to say, I mean, from what I hear, that most people trust the science and technology community in government, and I want that to continue. And of course, it's not only the matter of being honest, but also the matter of being competent. So we have to make sure that we are competent, we are efficient in doing our service to our clientele. So I have seen that PTRI has gained more, increase its capability, because they have sent people for advanced training, and very soon we will have Balik scientists who will be working with PTRI. So I think with all this convergence, we can accomplish a lot. So thank you again, and thank you for that.
President, please remain on stage, and Director Sally P. Alumba to present our Secretary a small token of appreciation and the Certificate of Appreciation. So let me read the citation. Certificate of Appreciation. Philippine Textile Research Institute award the Certificate of Appreciation to Honorable Fortunato T. de la Peña, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, for gracing the event as keynote speaker during the Forum on Opportunities for the Philippine Textile and Garment Industry 4.0, given this 20th day of July 2019 at the World Trade Center, Metro Manila. Signed. Thank you. And afterwards, may we invite all the speakers already present here to also have the picture taken with our Secretary and our Director. And our speakers, please.
Survey sa kanya. Baka sa Wednesday, may self-opening yung bagong station sa makapunta siya. O sa lagi naman siya. Nakita ko yung sarili ko. Pero Wednesday daw.
Okay, thank you so much, Secretary de la Peña and our speakers. So to all single ladies out there, you already know where to bring your bridal fabrics, but please don't let our official pick it up, okay, after. So now I think this is the time of the day. We've already fed our minds with so many things. And this is the time naman that we feed our tummy or our belly. So we have prepared for you a sumptuous lunch. I hope that you enjoy it. And we'll see you at 1 p.m. Thank you.